going on, everybody? Welcome back to Potential Mayhem with Aaron. We're diving straight into a packed slate across the NFL Divisional round, college football history being made, injury updates that change playoff paths, Hall of Fame news, and more fallout from NIL chaos. Let's get into it. All right, so we're 2 games away from learning who will be competing for the Super Bowl after this past weekend, and of course it didn't arrive without drama. First up, the Broncos outlasted the Bills at home after a late drive that sealed the victory 33-30 in overtime. The Bills had a couple of opportunities late to close out the Broncos but failed to make the necessary plays to get it done. They settled for a field goal late in regulation, forcing overtime. Then a heavily debated play where Cooks didn't complete the catch resulted in an interception by the Broncos. They marched down the field with the assistance of some PI calls and walked it off. Since then, Sean McDermott has been relieved of his duties as the Bills head coach. And in interesting fashion, they'll be heading in another direction next season. No favorites have been named, but with the announcement of John Harbaugh finalizing his deal with the Giants, the Dolphins selecting the Packers' former defensive coordinator plus Salah looking at, like he's heading to Tennessee, and Jesse Minter taking the Ravens' position, those 4 can be ruled out of contention. Oh, and I failed to mention, the Falcons apparently have found their choice. It's fair for one to believe this could jump to the top of the list of one of the more coveted positions, especially since the Ravens have been taken off the board. For the Broncos, who I imagine are hype about hosting the AFC Championship game, they also have the feeling of disgust as it was announced they'll be playing without their starting QB Bo Nix. Nix suffered a fractured ankle on the last drive of Sunday's game and will miss the remainder of the Broncos' playoff run. Speedy recovery to Bo Nix. I think that's every team's nightmare. You never want to see guys go down this time of the season. Meanwhile, their opponent will travel from Foxborough as the Patriots advance after beating the Houston Texans 28-16, which earns some rebuttal from Cardi B after a number of analysts predicted, well, actually all of them on ESPN, Houston to win that game. The Patriots defense turned C.J. Stroud over, and it wasn't a very good outing for him. This was the performance he was advised to stay away from heading into this matchup, but there are plenty of questions the Texans will need to answer this offseason regarding Stroud's performance and I guess lack of progression this season. Anyway, the Patriots and Broncos will face off this weekend with the winner setting its sights on the Lombardi and Santa Clara. On the other side, the Seahawks did what I figured and completely dismantled the 49ers. Third shot at this thing, with the last matchup being a defensive struggle, plus an injury-filled roster with Kittle being added as the latest addition. All too familiar with the situation, and being the home team, having the previous week off, Shaheed has been the key addition, and him scoring out the gate on the opening kickoff set the tone. It's never close. Kenneth Walker socked them boys up, toting that rock. Seahawks advanced 41-6 to stay home and challenge my Rams to rep the NFC and SoFi North for the whole thing. Yes, I said Rams because we went into frigid Shot City and held it down in the cold. Coming out on top 2017, even after surviving the most improbable pass I've probably seen this year, especially for Caleb Williams, and we watched him put up some magic this year. He really tried to break our hearts collectively with that throw, which I think we will see that highlight of for many years to come, especially if he shakes that Iceman BS and allows his legend to continue to grow. Y'all really can't be that tone deaf in Chicago, of all places. Like, come on, bruh. What are y'all doing? Anyway, Kobe Durant had a few picks, as did Cam Curl, which helped us walk it off in overtime. Rams get the win, finally get to travel back to the West Coast to finish out this run in weather we're a bit more accustomed to. I said heading in, if we get wins on this side in these conditions, it'll build character, and I feel bad for our next opponent, which turns out to be a divisional foe we owe some get back to. And what ended as a bit of a thriller, college football found out its new crown champion. Congratulations to the Indiana Hoosiers. They held it down as they have won the school's very first national championship in football. Indiana beat the University of Miami 27-21 Monday night. They capped the win with an interception on Carson Beck during a last-minute drive to try and steal the game. Everyone expected this to be a physical game, and the Hoosiers held the Canes scoreless in the first half. Missed field goal contributed to that by the Canes. Mixture of Miami's impatience with their play calling offensively, wanting to get the pass game going to help the run, came to no avail. as Indiana sat in the zone, continuously batted pass attempts down by Beck. This had a negative effect on the Canes defense as they had to keep returning to the field after 3 and outs, at least their defense. That's when penalties started showing up at the most inopportune times. Despite that, Miami was able to keep the same offense that had exploded in its previous 2 games to just 10 in the first half points, so slight win for them. Second half, total different story though. Yet, when you look at the score and take away the missed field goal attempt in the first half, those 6 points are extremely loud. I heard some people talk about it, but that blocked punt that ended in a touchdown for Indiana is just like insult to injury. Some of those looks on the Miami sideline when it happened spoke volumes. Though they were still in position to challenge the outcome, how fitting for Carson Beck's college career to end with a pick on an underthrown ball he threw, attempting to give his receiver a shot without it being challenged by the safety over the top, only for the corner underneath to cut it off, sealing the victory. Beck, a 7th-year senior, will undoubtedly be headed for the draft next year. But that leads me into another direction regarding the fallout of this year's college football playoff. With Chambliss and Ole Miss announcing their lawsuit against the NCAA regarding this denial of its extension, it begs the question, where exactly is this thing headed? There's been plenty of discourse surrounding Kirk Netty and the phenomenal job he's done turning the Indiana program around in a short 2-year span, considering the lack of 4 or 5 star recruits on their roster, especially compared to their opponents through this historic run. The Hoosiers' average age of the roster during Monday night's contest was a whopping 24 years old. I saw Ryan Clark respond in a joking manner that they're a team of grown men in response to Kevin Nagandhi's post on X praising the Hoosiers' level of discipline. But there's always some truth in every joke, right? I've noticed there hasn't been as much of the same criticism surrounding these players staying in college football as long as they are compared to basketball. And I'm curious what's so different. And more importantly, is it sustainable? I'm assuming we are reaching the finality of it because much of it stemmed from the infamous COVID year. And seeing how the NCAA seemed to crack down this year with their response to players like Trinidad Chambliss. And if you're unfamiliar with what happened, here's my report on when we first learned about it after Miami's win to advance to the championship game. Looks like news broke that Chambliss and Ole Miss were denied the waiver to extend his collegiate career to a 6th season, currently ending his college career. Ole Miss has filed the waiver in November, but the NCAA has formally denied the request following a review. Ole Miss filed the request on the basis that Chambliss was not physically able to play his sophomore year at Ferris State, stemming from respiratory issues, which would have fallen under a medical condition. NCAA requires medical documentation provided by a treating physician at the time the student's injury took place, and what ended up happening was they said that based on the documentation that they do have, it was insufficient. They basically said that the documentation that they received from Ferris State stated that wasn't the reason why Chambliss wasn't playing. It was due to developmental needs and competition. That was the reason why he played. I think the note from the physician that was caring for him, the last note was in October of 23. Stated that he was in good condition, had been well. So pretty sure Ole Miss is going to try to appeal. I'm not sure if they will get anywhere further with that appeal, but I guess you got to start somewhere, huh? So we'll see what happens with that. But as for right now, the NCAA has decided to deny his waiver request for an extension. Right, so Carson Beck was QB at UGA last season when he tore his UCL during the college football playoffs against Notre Dame. Rather than returning, he was offered $4 million in NIL money to transfer to the University of Miami. Both schools made the playoffs this season and were on track to possibly face each other until UGA lost at the hands of Ole Miss. Beck made a comment prior to the game that he hadn't been to class in 2 years due to his length of eligibility. Now, on the basketball side, former NBA players, namely Matt Barnes, recently voiced his opinion once comments were made by St. John's head coach Rick Pitino regarding his recruiting process. Transfer portal has made it possible for players to keep themselves at peak interest, and rules surrounding eligibility have allowed players to extend their stay at the college level. Here's also the train of thought that players' ability to capitalize off NIL money makes the decision to hang around longer a bit easier. Back to Matt Barnes' argument. His sentiment is much the same as Ryan Clark was, which is at 24-25, these players need to move along and stop holding up the process. I think I spoke on this on a previous episode. I have to go back and take a look. But it has a trickle-down effect. As Rick Pitino stated, he's not recruiting players out of high school. He's going to the transfer portal and looking for upperclassmen with experience and eligibility. Which I get. Pitino's looking for instant success. He's been doing this for a long time, and the chip would help repair his legacy or any damages that has been done, and all things considered. And I think of a trend we've seen so many times as that teams with experience and that have been together longer will almost always beat younger, talented teams. Hence why Calipari is now in Arkansas instead of Kentucky. Signetti took the same approach and got a Heisman winner with another transfer looking to replace him after Mendoza seemingly would get drafted number 1 overall by the Raiders. So, how long will he be able to run the same scheme, or does a national championship improve recruiting enough that he'll be able to get more 4 or 5 star recruits to commit? Because my initial thought was Alabama has to be watching this with the group text active full of names willing to pitch in and foot the bill for that buyout. But Signetti's deal was extended after last season's success, and he made $11 million in regular salary with a $2 million bonus for winning the title this year. He and IU will restructure after this win to find a number that makes him a top 3 paid coach in college football. Average, obviously. Sounds like life is on the up and up for the coach in Bloomington. I imagine he'll be celebrated like the guy moving forward. So it would really take an offer that knocks the socks off from, let's say, in Alabama to consider moving, right? You look at what Kiffin just pulled off, and it's like, what's the number? The scary part, though, is the thought that if he could do what he did with that, imagine what he could do with... Now I get it. That's with fewer egos in the room, willing to bet, not nearly the same distractions, no entitlement when you've been at the bottom, not including last season. But it appears Signetti knows his way around the football field and can coach. So with the NCAA cracking down on eligibility extensions, will it slow down the possibility of the trend of coaches looking for more experienced players rather than the traditional way of recruiting talent? Or will this continue to be the way, just with players having a smaller time window to make a move? Moving into the NBA, Jimmy Butler tore his ACL the other night in his matchup against Miami in the Golden State W Monday. It wasn't achieved without a loss. Jimmy Butler suffered an ACL tear, ending his season with the Dubs. Golden State won the game 135-112 in a matchup against Butler's former team that became so toxic he was sent home, subsequently forcing a trade from the Heat. Play in question, Butler elevated to catch an entry pass, and while trying to fend off the defender, landed awkwardly where his knees seemed to buckle inward. As soon as that happened, he reacted and fell to the ground in pain. Speedy recovery to Jimmy Butler, as that will no doubt have an effect on the team moving forward. I think they've already mentioned that Steve Kerr has gotten extended, and they've been moving like he will not be there next season. So we'll see what happens. MLB. Braves legend Andrew Jones received his Hall of Fame nod Tuesday from the MLB. Jones memorably played center field for the Atlanta Braves and caught the attention of many early in his career, hitting a couple of home runs in the '96 World Series. I think they won that one, but he still showed out. He went on to win 10 consecutive Gold Gloves, which is impressive. Add at least 400 home runs, and joins Jones' a company of names such as Mays, Griffey Jr., and Mike Schmidt. In addition to Jones, Carlos Beltran will join him, and they will enter as the 4th and 5th primary center fielders to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, including the likes of, again, Griffey Jr. and Kirby Puckett. Congrats to both guys on the news of their induction. Back to college football. After UGA set precedent with its lawsuit against Damon Wilson III, seeking $390,000 in damages stemming from NIL money received prior to him transferring to Missouri, Duke has since followed suit. QB Darian Mensah entered the portal last week. Mensah signed what's believed to be a $4 million contract with Duke in 2024. After informing his coach last Friday, the university has stepped in attempting to ensure said contract is not breached. A lot of discussion has been surrounding these NIL deals lately and whether there needs to be an intervention, government intervention at that. And one thing does seem apparent: the idea of how a contract works does not seem to be common knowledge. And life lessons are being taught in real time. So the court has issued a temporary restraining order ensuring Mensah does not violate the current contract in place while allowing him to enter the portal, but not allowing him to enroll at another school. According to terms of the Duke NIL, this dispute would head to arbitration where both parties will have an opportunity to share their grievances. It's reported Mensah is working to make his way down to Miami after Beck's exit. Makes a little bit more sense now. I imagine if this is true and Duke wants to receive a buyout, depending on how much interest Miami has, they could figure out the money aspect, and this would be much to do about nothing. Guess we'll get to see here in a few weeks what's going on. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Potential Mayhem with Aaron. If you enjoyed the breakdown, the takes, or the chaos, as always, tap in, share it, and stay locked in. Until next time, keep your head on the swivel, and remember, today's a great day to be great.